Hello, I'm Legowelt and we're here in my studio in the Netherlands. Well, this here is a Sequential Circuits Pro 1. It's a pretty well-known synthesizer and I got it in the 90s, I think 1994. I traded it for an Akai VX90 synthesizer module with a Spanish flamenco guitarist, and yeah, he didn't use this, so I traded it. I think it was a good trade. As you can see, the keyboard is really crap on this one, and yeah, Pro 1. This is more interesting. This is a Krumar DS2 from Italy, and it's a very obscure synthesizer. It has a polyphonic section, which is fully polyphonic, so I can put my arm on the thing and every note will sound. And it has a monophonic 2-oscillator synthesizer in it. And yeah, this weird modulation routings, and yeah, it's also they're known to be falling apart pretty quick. They're very unreliable, and I got this from two guys that emailed me. They had this on their attic, and they said if I wanted it for free. And first I thought, oh, that's a bit scary, you know, sure gonna give me a synthesizer for free. But they kept insisting, so one day I said, okay, sure, you can come to my house and bring this thing. And it didn't work for some, well, obvious reason, because they never seem to work. And then the next day I turned it on. I wanted to repair it, and it magically everything worked. So yeah, that's Krumar DS2. Very strange machine. And over here we have a Korg Monopoly, which is one of my favorite synthesizers because it's really strange. It has 4 oscillators which you can play together or polyphonically, and you can arpeggiate through the different oscillators, and yeah, you can do all kinds of exotic stuff with it, like there's chord memory on it. And see, this is like the normal synthesizer part, but if you press chord memory here, then you can play it like that monophonically, and then you can arpeggiate that too. So you get these kind of like Robert Hood-esque techno riffs and all kinds of other stuff. And this is a Roland GD800. Yeah, that's a digital synthesizer from 1992, I think. I made a sample kit with this one. You can download it on my site, and it's a very nice machine. I bought it from a New Age composer, and it smelled very much like incense when I bought it, like 2 years ago. It was in pristine state, and yeah, it doesn't smell like incense anymore, fortunately. And yeah, there's lots of faders, as you can see, so it's really nice to program. It uses this Roland, what's it called, a synthesis form called LA synthesis. And normally that's very difficult to edit, especially on the cheaper ones like the Roland D10 or the REC, the D1110, which we all had in the 1990s, and we couldn't afford this, but nowadays we have this, yeah. And this is the Yamaha PS380, 2-operator FM synthesizer with sliders. It's basically a keyboard, but yeah, it's not really a synthesizer. I think you can do the envelope generator a bit here, ADR, and spectrum modulation, and it's got lots of presets. Yeah, and over here we have the Roland Super JX, which is basically two Roland GX3Ps into a giant new case, and this was the flagship synthesizer in mid 80s, I think, or 1986. I guess it was the successor to the Roland Jupiter 8 in theory. It comes with a programmer here, so you can edit the sounds with these sliders. And it's very, very soundtracky. It's really good for majestic, broad strings, like as you can hear, like. Very woolly sound. Over here we have a Roland Juno 60, which is well known, I guess. I bought it really cheap, like a long time ago. Nowadays they're really expensive, and yeah, maybe they're a little bit too expensive, because I've seen them for like 1,200 euros, which is kind of too much, yeah. But it sounds nice. And here's the Sequential Circuits 6-track, which is a really funky synthesizer. It's really good for like kind of the Prince brassy sound. It's though a little bit difficult to program, and these buttons, these rubber buttons, are a bit sticky, so I cannot go to the 0 parts anymore. And the cool thing about this is that it has a 6-track sequencer built in, and you can mute these parts. It's not a step time sequencer, so you have to play it really, how to call it, yeah, tight. Maybe it quantizes it a bit. It has an arpeggiator too. And, yeah, it's a nice machine. This is my mixer. It's a Soundcraft. I used to have a really big mixer, like a 32-channel Tascam M, what was it, 3700, like a really heavy thing. It weighed like 80 kilos, and it was like a, yeah, I didn't like it because it was too big, and it made too much noise, and it used too much electricity, and basically I just used 5 channels all the time. So I gave that away to a friend of mine, and then I got this recently. I used to have a Soundcraft in the 90s, and what I really like about these things are the sweep filters. They're almost like an analog filter. If you play something, you can go like yeah, and I also really like the colors, because they're nice little colorful. Yeah, there's a turquoise, purple and green, yellow, of course, yeah, and red. And it's nice, and it's got a built-in effects processor by Lexicon. Yeah. This is my little FM corner, so to speak. Got a DX5 from Yamaha, which is a fancy version of the DX7. Basically 2 DX7s in one giant case, and the knobs are a little bit more fancy. And this goes through the Moog delay, analog delay, to make it a little bit more warmer. Yeah, it's a nice machine. I got this recently. It looks cool with these vector graphics on here, or whatever it is. I don't even know what this means. I can program them quite well, actually. But I don't know anything about the theory about FM synthesis. I just know what the buttons do and how the sounds are changed. I think that is the best way to go about FM synthesis. And over here is a Yamaha DX7 with a wooden top, because it was a little bit destroyed. As you can see, there's a hole here also still, but I couldn't put wood on there, of course. And yeah, so it's kind of like a special edition DX7. Yeah, I always like to put FM synthesizers through little analog boxes, like this really cheap monotron, so I can filter it a little bit. But this one is really noisy, but it's really cheap. And over there's the Yamaha DX21, which was actually my first synthesizer. And I bought that in 1993, I guess. And I thought I was gonna buy a synthesizer where I could make like house music sounds with, like a TB303 or the acid sounds. But that's of course pretty impossible with that thing, and I was kind of disappointed because I didn't understand at all how you had to program that, because I was a little kid. And yeah, if that is your first synthesizer, you're completely puzzled. But then I spent lots of lonely nights in the attic with this thing, and slowly I learned to program FM synthesis. I don't know if that's a good thing, but yeah, I can program it pretty well still. I remember that. And over here, I was busy finding some old tracks of mine I used to produce on the Commodore Amiga 1200. Which I made like basically everything on until like 1999 or even 2002. I probably stopped using it. That and the Atari ST, that's what I used in the 90s. And on the Amiga we used a program called Octamet, which was a Finnish freeware public domain program, and it's a tracker program. And what's cool about this is that it could do MIDI, and you could sync drum machines. And basically what you have is like a kind of sampling workstation drum machine sequencer. You have the Cool Toms and other samples. Then you had to play, but you could attach a keyboard, and I also have a MIDI converter and a sampler, but they're not here right now. Probably in an attic somewhere. But can play something from this. And you see like the waveforms and stuff, and it has these cool like how do you go, gradient bars, all kinds of stuff going on. Let's see. Yeah, normally, because what you're hearing right now is the sound directly out of the Amiga 1200, because it had two outputs, stereo output, with RCA cables, and what we used to do was put it through an analog filter. A lot of time we used the MS-10 or the Pro 1 over there, or yeah, and any synthesizer with an analog filter input. So the sound, because as you can hear, the sounds are quite yeah, they're 8-bit, so they're quite rough and on the edges. So if you put an analog filter over there, it gets a little bit rounder and more organic. And yeah, but almost all my early records I released on Bunker Records, except the first one, which was Pimp Shifter, but all the other ones were made with this Amiga. And it was always funny because people would say, oh, it sounds so analog, you're using all these analog machines, but then it's just a 16-bit or 32-bit computer from 1992. And it's also funny that back in the 90s, this whole argument about hardware versus software didn't exist, and nobody was going like, oh, this is stupid, you're using a computer to make music or whatever. Yeah, so then people don't have a problem if you use an Amiga. I mean, like software computer haters, if that still exists. I don't know. Yeah, well, that's the Amiga. Yeah, this is the little Roland Jupiter area. I used to have a Jupiter 6 too. This is the Jupiter 4 and the Jupiter 8, and I used to have the Jupiter 6 too, but that was kind of a little bit too much. And yeah, the Jupiter 6 is okay, but not as cool as these two things. Over here's the Jupiter 4, which was, I guess, the first polyphonic synthesizer made by Roland. And for a long time, I can remember like the late 90s and early 2000s, these things were very cheap. I think till well into 2008 you could buy them for a few €100, I guess. Basically because of these knobs on the front here, people thought it was an organ, a preset organ, and it kind of looks like that, but it's a very, very powerful analog synthesizer. It's kind of similar to a Roland Juno 60, but then it has a much more magic edge. Especially the arpeggiator is really, really nice. Let me see if I can turn it up a little bit. It is very simple. The arpeggiator only has like up, down, up and down, and random. It doesn't have any octave selections. And it was also one of the first synthesizers with a memory called compu memory. That's why it's called compuphonic, I guess. That was a big deal back then in the 70s, but yeah. Not nowadays, of course, but yeah, it has a very pristine sound, very 70s analog Roland sound, like those other synthesizers have from Roland from that time. I don't know, like the SH5 or something, or System 100. Yeah. And this is of course the Jupiter 8. this is a bit in the way. A very colorful synthesizer, and yeah, it's very expensive these days. Also maybe a little bit too expensive, like the Juno 60. This is a, yeah, it looks nice, and I got this in 2005, I think, for 2,000 euros, which was a lot of money back then, but now for compared to the price nowadays, it's pretty cheap, I guess. It has really nice sliders and all kinds of things. Basically, what's really cool about this machine is that you can just turn on the arpeggiator, press it on hold, and then press something random, and like this. Yeah, it keeps playing, and then change the envelopes a bit. Yeah, and then you can just space out for hours, basically, you know. Well, yeah, you get the idea. It's a very fancy synthesizer with a lot of functions. Not so much exotic. It just has everything a synthesizer needs. Maybe it would be even more cooler if it had a third VCO, but yeah, that isn't the case. But you can do that actually, because you can have two different sounds at the same time. So you can have 4 VCOs, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, because if you press these buttons, you have 2 sounds at the same time. Yeah, that's a Jupiter 8. I'm glad to have that thing in my collection, I guess. And over here we have this little Oberheim, Tom Oberheim SEM module. This is the new remake from a few years ago, or they're still being produced. And I always really wanted to have an Oberheim 2 voice. Or 4 voice or 8 voice, but they're really expensive. And then I heard last year that Tom Oberheim was gonna make a 2 voice again, so I was really excited. Then I waited and waited, and it didn't come out. I think it's coming out this year finally, but I'm not so sure about that. So I decided to make my own Oberheim 2 voice by buying 2 of these modules. And currently I only own 1, because I wanted to buy the other one, but they were sold out. And yeah, there's this little box from, what's the thing, MIDI-Paul. And with that you can play monophonic modules, polyphonic via MIDI. So if I would have like 3 of these SEM modules, I can play them polyphonic using a MIDI keyboard. So then I basically have a 2 or 3 voice SEM, and I can put a little analog sequencer in, and then I make a nice wooden case around it with a little keyboard and I don't know, like a dark time sequencer next to it. Yeah, that's the Oberheim SEM. Yeah, this is my drum machine section. So I have a few drum machine bits. I got the 808. Which I have for a really long time, since like 1993, also 1994. Was really cheap back in the days. Yeah, it's been signed by the Egyptian lover, as you can see. I don't know if that makes it worth more, or maybe not. There's some stickers of animals on there. A friend of mine put them on there in the late 90s. And without any idea that this thing was gonna be so expensive these days. So it hasn't been treated with much respect over the years. But yeah, well, here's the bass drum and the snare drum. Well, we probably all know how an 808 works. These are the hi-hats. What I always do actually is I put it through this little pedal, which is a compressor sustainer from Boss, and you can really make it sound like a lot more punchy with this. And it kind of works differently than a normal rack compressor, because it's also a sustainer, so you gotta find the right thing. But yeah, let's see. The clap is always nice, of course. And in emulations of the 808, the thing they never get right is the clap for some reason. I don't know why that is, but I never heard a good emulation of the clap. Even samples kind of sound bad sometimes, like also in software where you have like the Nefeton, I think it's called, which is a really nice 808 software package, but the clap always is not the same as this. So. And this is a Boss DR660, which is missing its power supply. I don't know where that went, but I used this a lot for the drums, especially in the late 90s and yeah, all the way through the 2000s. This is also a famous Chicago house drum machine used probably in 90% of all Dance Mania records. And there's also even records where they just use this thing without anything else, because it also has bass sounds built in, like kind of a synth bass sound. It's really easy to program and really a lot of fun. And over here is a TR707, which is a cheap Roland TR. And the cool thing about it is that it has a trigger output. So with this you can trigger like kind of MIDI sync a Roland Jupiter 8 or Jupiter 4 or Juno 60 and kind of program the steps of the arpeggiator. But it has nice sounds in it. It might be a bit outplayed currently. Might have been used too much, but then again the 808 and 909 have been used too much too, but that's kind of different because somehow this drum machine isn't that cool as the 808 and 909. Nobody says that, but everybody knows that's true. And that's why they're also cheap. And over here we have a future classic, or that's what I think is going to be a future classic. That is the Electripe rhythm synthesizer made by Korg. It's an Electripe with a rhythm, and yeah, people are always kind of like, how do you say it? Yeah, it's not their favorite piece of gear because it's that's such a weird Electripe thing that only does 3 drum sounds. That is kind of true. Hi-hats are kind of really crap, but let me put it on. See what's going. Yeah, it's really good for, I guess, techno music. I guess it's kind of like a minimal techno Berghain sound or something. And yeah, and it has the same sequencer as the 808, all the Roland TRs, but even better because you can write while you're playing, just like the TR606 is the only Roland that can do that too, I believe. And yeah, it's got a delay effect, yeah, this is a cool thing, and it actually sounds pretty good, especially if you EQ it and put it through a compressor sustainer from Boss. It can sound really nice. And this is another Boss pedal I have, which is the digital pitch shifter delay PS3, and this thing is really freaky. It can like reverse the sound you put in and pitch it, and it's all kinds of things. It's pretty broken, so I cannot demonstrate it, sadly. And yeah, it's the drum machine corner. And over here I got a obscure Hohner KS49 MIDI synthesizer. That's part of the name because it says here MIDI, KS49 MIDI. This is a German version of the Casio HT700. The main difference is that it is gray or white instead of black, and apparently the presets are a little bit different. And this is a really nice, cheap, actually analog synthesizer. It's really simple. One oscillator which uses digital waveforms, goes through a really nice sounding analog filter. There's a lot of stuff really bad about it too. Like if you take out the power, it forgets all the patches you put in there. So you always have to have the power cable in, else yeah, it. Nice, excellent. It's really cheap. I got this for 30 euros, which might even be too expensive for it, or I paid more for it, I think. Yeah. Actually, I paid 90 euros for it, not 30. It was something else. Yeah. Yeah, let's go to the other room. I got more synthesizers there, so follow me, I guess. Yeah. Welcome in my other studio room. There's yeah, a bunch of other synthesizers here. I'm working on a different project in this room. So yeah, I basically have 2 rooms so I can work on 2 different projects at the same time. That sounds kind of complicated, but it actually makes things easier for me. And it's also nice for myself to have a different, how do you call it, a workspace now and then. Especially if you have to do this every day. I guess it kind of feeds the, how do you call it, creativity. So, and maybe it's also because of space. Well, let me show you around. We start out with this nice blue big thing. This is a Dave Smith Instruments Poly Evolver keyboard. I think it's made around 2005 or 2006. I traded this last month for my emulator 2, which is a giant sampler. It was over there, and it used like really old style floppies, like these, and well, it was really a pain in the ass to use because you had to load the floppies and you had to play a sample, and very yeah, and lots of hassle, and in my workflow it kind of was a thing that I didn't like, but the sound was really good from the emulator. But I could trade it for this, so I did that, and I'm very happy I did, because this is a strange, yeah, what is it, analog hybrid synthesizer, and I think it was the flagship of Dave Smith Instruments until they made the Prophet 12 last year. And yeah, it sounds really, really nice, and what I particularly like are all the blue lights, like the blue lights in the wheels and everywhere, and there's also blue lights behind you cannot see. That's the voice allocation lights. I don't know why they put them on the back, so the audience can see that you're not cheating if you're playing the keys, I guess. I'm not sure, but let me play something. Because it has 4 oscillators, so you can have of which 2 are digital and 2 are analog, so you can have a very, very complex sound. And there's a sequencer built in which can be assigned to a lot of the synthesizer functions, and yeah, it's got all kinds of crazy stuff, like digital weird distortion effects. I'm not a big fan of those things, so yeah, this is mostly known as a very harsh sounding synthesizer, but you can also make some really dreamy noises like this. As you can hear, like almost every note you play sounds different, and that's one of the nice things of the. That's why it's called Evolver. There's something going on, that there's like little artifacts in each note you play. Let me check if I can have some. Here you can hear like a typical Prophet VS kind of vibe, bell sound on it. Well, enough about this thing. I'm just excited because I got it recently. And behind this is my Tascam 4-track tape recorder. I actually use this a lot to record tracks on, because when you record on this, it sounds really, it can sound really nice, because it gives an extra low end, especially if you put the EQ up. And so you record on these cassette tapes, which are back in vogue recently, I think. Lots of artists have been releasing on cassette tapes again. I'm not sure who actually buys those or listens to them. My new album will also be available on cassette tape. Yeah, and over here is my Korg MS-10 synthesizer, which is one of my first synthesizers. Got it in the early 90s. Was really excited because that was my first analog synthesizer that could make acid bleeps. So there was a refreshing change from my DX21. And Yeah, it's different from the MS-20. It's like a one oscillator version of the MS-20, sort of, but actually it can do a little bit more heavy bass sounds, I think, because it has pulse width modulation, and somehow it sounds a little bit more fatter, I think, not so, what's the English word for it, harsh, more rounder and organic. I think, but maybe that's because some of these old MSs have like different chips in them. I think they're called the 35 chip. Apparently they're in the MS-22, and then it makes them sound more organic, I guess, but I don't know much about that. But yeah, these days I mainly use it as a filter bank. So I put like digital synthesizers through it to make it sound more fluent. And right now I have this Akai Professional SG01V vintage sound module, which I acquired recently, last month, from the guys from Delsin. And it's probably one of the most ugliest synthesizers ever made. It's pretty horrendous, and it looks like yeah, what does it look like? Like a early 90s dishwasher control panel, and yeah, all the knobs are all smoky, and but it's actually a nice little rumpler. You can actually edit the sounds a little bit quite easy with these knobs. It basically got like 250 something samples from old vintage synthesizers. So it's basically an Akai sampler player with some little extras, but it goes through this one, through the MS-10, and it sounds like this. So I can modulate the filter a bit or something, make it extra juicy. For your entertainment, I will skip through some of the presets here. Some more acid sound. So got nice bass sounds in it. Yeah, it's got electric pianos too. And here we have a boring but essential sound card. Sound cards are really boring. They're like compressors and monitors. But I really like this sound card. It's the RME. I got two of those. A baby face too. Here's my other mixer for this studio. It's a little version of the other mixer I have. It has the same interesting colors. And over here is a Inco MX995 mixer. It's a little bit dusty, as you can see. I've been using it. Piece came off of the side, sadly. This is a really cheap, crappy mixer from the early 80s. But the cool thing is that it has a built-in analog delay, and sometimes if you need to warm a sound up, you just put it through there and you twiggle the delay, and then it goes like wee wee wee, and yeah, that can change things a little bit, make it more dynamic. Okay, and over here we have a Roland D50. That's a digital synthesizer from the late 80s by Roland. It's probably one of the warmest sounding digital synthesizers ever made until now I guess it's got some really nice ambient sounds. Get these sounds out of any other synthesizer. It's like a unique, yeah, very, no, like Aphex Twin selected ambient work sound or something. It also does really nice. These kind of Detroit digital sounds and. Stuff like this. Oh. Nice noise generator in there. And over here we have the strange but not so obscure, it's pretty well known. It's the Roland JX3P. I think it's from 1983, one of the first synthesizers that had MIDI. And yeah, it's kind of strange because this is the only synthesizer Roland made in this yeah, color scheme. It's got like kind of Ethiopian Rastafarian flag color on it. But it's an analog synthesizer using 2 oscillators. And the really interesting thing about this is that it has a built-in step sequencer, which I haven't seen on any other synthesizer. Of course I've seen step synthesizer, but this one is polyphonic and it's really easy to use. Let me see if it gives sound. Oh, that's where the synthesizer. Yeah, so this is the sound of the JX3P. I have the programmer here, the PG200, because normally it doesn't come with the programmer. You had to buy that separately, but you got a picture of the programmer if you didn't have the programmer. And the program is really nice. It has magnets on here, so it just clicks on there. Anyways, I'm gonna show you this nice exotic synthesizer. The sound is a little bit like not really warm and deep. It's a little bit like brassy, a little bit like jovial, I guess. It's a little bit like, yeah, not rough filter, but yeah, how do you call it? Like not very smooth. Doesn't have much character, the sound, so to speak, but that doesn't mean it's a nice synthesizer, because it's all about the sequencer in this thing. So I just select a nice preset here. Yeah, this is a typical Roland sound. I'm gonna use the sequencer. I just press right here, and then this becomes like, this light will show the steps of the sequencer, and I can play. So you can do polyphonic notes in this thing, and now I will play it. And And I can change the presets, and it will keep on playing the sequencer. Oh, this is not, and you can transpose the sequence here. And yeah, if you have the 808 or 707, you can trigger the sequencer and sync it up to anything you want. The MIDI on here is really bad, because if you use the programmer, you cannot use the MIDI or something. But they make a third-party chip for it, I think, and I'm not sure what it's called. But then it turns into a modern synthesizer. Yeah, and what else is there? Yeah, it's got the chorus. Strange, quaint, quirky synthesizer. Over here we have the little Moog corner. I don't know if you can see it. Here is a modern Moog. This is the little fatty. I'm not sure why I got it. I just got it like 2 months ago, before I knew they were going to make the Sub 37. Let me see if I can play some. No, that's not it. That's not it. Yeah, these are the typical. Moog sounds. It's a little bit of a boring synthesizer, actually, I think. Also, this arpeggiator business is all tucked away in a menu here. The nice thing are these knobs. If you're playing, I use this sometimes live on stage, and then these, how do you call these things? Rotary encoders. It's nice because they show where you are and something. It's too difficult for me to explain, but I guess you get the picture. Yeah, so this is probably gonna go and be replaced with a nice shiny Sub 37, yeah, soon. So if anybody wants to buy a little fatty with some nice presets, you know where to go. And here is a Moog source. Actually, it's called The Source. It's the official name. People always say Moog Source, but it is Moog The Source, because it says it's the here before source. And this was the first synthesizer Moog made using a completely digital interface. It doesn't have knobs, only this really cool, as you can see, like weighted, yeah, what is it? Controller, like almost of a video game from that era. I think it was Intellivision or ColecoVision that had a knob like this, but it's, you see, you just push it like that and it keeps going, and then it changes. So you basically press what you want to change. So let me see where it is. It has a really nice sound. It's probably one of the nicest Moogs after the Mini Moog. But this sound is a little bit dull, but see? So you can. Yeah, typical Moog sounds, and it has 2 oscillators, and it's very simple. 2 oscillators, noise generator, nothing fancy. It has memory though. It was one of the first Moogs with built-in memory, and it has an arpeggiator and a sequencer. Actually, you can put a bunch of sequences in here. This is the Moog Voyager. This is actually not mine, because I own a real Moog, mini Moog from the 70s, and I traded this temporarily with a friend. So he got my old Moog and I got his new Voyager. And it's a little bit different than a normal mini Moog because it has some extra modulation capabilities, of course, and it has this weird iPad screen, and it has memory. The coolest thing, I think, is when you save a preset, you can type in the preset with these keys. That's the coolest thing. One of the, oh, not coolest, of course the sound is really good, but it's a fun thing. Let me see if where it is. And it doesn't sound as dusty as an old Moog for some reason, but it sounds really nice. Sounds like a Commodore 64 Kung Fu or karate game. Contrary to common belief, I actually own a modular system. A lot of people think I hate modular systems, which is not true, because I was in a documentary called I Dream of Wires, and I was ranting against them. But that was because of certain things the modulars or the modular scene does, which is a lot of like random bleep 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 bloop music, and so I actually own this Dupfer system, and it's custom made, so it's not a System 100 or anything. I chose the modules myself because I wanted to have a kind of emulation of the what's it called, Syntacon synthesizer from the 70s. I think it was made in Colorado. It's a really obscure synthesizer and really expensive, and you cannot find it anywhere. The unique thing of that synthesizer was that it used a Vectral filter, I think, so that's inside here. That's a Vectral VCF. It's got lots of filters actually. It also got a diode filter, an 18 dB TB303 filter, a normal SSM 24 dB low pass filter. It's got a spring reverb, lots of VCAs, lots of VCOs, well, 4 actually, and lots of LFOs, so I can modulate everything. It's got 3 noise generators and lots of mixers and little knickknacks, sample and hold, ring modulation. So this is not extremely exotic stuff from obscure brands, because I'm not that deep into the modular thing, but I just wanted to have a kind of system where I could make some interesting organic sounds, maybe try to emulate a lot of nature sounds. I'm gonna turn it on now. You're hearing it right now, so a very organic, drony sound. Again. It also has MIDI, so I could play it with a keyboard too if I wanted parts of it, but yeah, I really like these kind of like Brian Eno on land ambient atmospheres, like that. It sounds like you're in nature, but actually you're not. You're in a studio with lots of nasty radiation and chemical fumes from these synthesizers, which is quite horrible in a way. Yeah, so this is it. It actually goes through an analog delay, which is the Behringer vintage time machine, which is a kind of a crap analog delay. It's a copy of the Electro Harmonics. What's that thing called? You can hear it. How crap it is. Memory Man. I actually think this sounds better than the Memory Man because it's more warmer. Over here we have another one of my favorite synthesizers, which is the Korg. Turn this off for a second. Korg Poly 61, which is an early 80s analog polyphonic synthesizer. Good for those kind of like yeah, old VHS tape sound almost, like I guess yeah, with Boards of Canada-esque sounds or something. Fuzzy and really basic. It's a really basic synthesizer. As you can see, there's no knobs, but it's so simple to program, you know. If you want to change the filter, you just press this and then this, and then you can change the filter with this. Because there's not much to program, so it's really simple, and it just looks super cool, like this pink colored LEDs. Things with little waveforms. Yeah. There's actually a tip if you own one of these. If you take the spring out of this joystick, you basically have a programmable second LFO, because you can change the frequency of the joystick here that modulates the oscillator or a filter. But if you take because normally the spring goes back, makes it go back, but if you take the spring out, you can just program like the amount of DCO it will get, which leaves this LFO open to do something else. Like you can put this one on the VCF and make it really slow. If you make it really slow, you get that fuzzy Boards of Canada effect, I guess, or what's the band called? Anyways, there's a chord memory in here too, which is really cool. So you can make a chord and then press this, and now you can play that chord with one finger, so you can get these esoteric house music effects, or what is it, chill wave, I don't know what it's called, C-punk. And it has an arpeggiator too. And you can, like a lot of old Korg products, you can arpeggiate the chord. chord memory, not the chord memory. The chord memory is if I press hold, I think, or a ledge, is it? Can get really nice arpeggios on this thing. This sounds like a helicopter. See? Like I said before, it's really simple. Like the filter only has 63 steps, and the resonance only has 7 steps, I think. Yeah, here. It does some really weird stuff if you put the resonance up to 7. Almost. Maybe not so weird, but yeah, this is a really nice, and it's really cheap. You know, like, I don't know, $200. So this is the Prophet 8 from Dave Smith Instruments. Yeah, it's kind of different from the Poly Evolver, which we heard before, because it doesn't have digital oscillators. This is all analog, and yeah, I kind of like it. It's known to have also a very harsh sound, but because the presets that are in this thing, when you buy it, they're pretty horrible, I must say. And I almost didn't buy one because I heard the presets and I was like, oh, this thing sounds like crap. But then I started programming it in the store, and I thought, oh no, this is really a nice machine which can do some really nice sounds. But yeah, definitely a little workhorse around these parts here, yeah. And it just looks super cool with these little sequential circuit knobs. Okay, well, I guess that's it for this room. Yeah, and yeah, so we're ready here.